Folks, this is Steve with Real Progressives. We are going to give this another shot. Tonight, joining me is friend, journalist, and political commentator Mike Sainato. Mike, welcome back to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm good. So, trying to jump back into to where we were. The Democratic Party not being honest with its supporters. I've heard from people complaining yesterday about Elizabeth Warren not being heard, citing that time that Nina Turner was banned from speaking at the Democratic National Convention. And mainstream media journalists ignored it. Democrats never apologized to her. Never acknowledged it. It's one of those things they've let go, and these things have piled up. These slights toward Bernie Sanders supporters. Online, we're still dealing with Democrats, feeling like we're not part of the party. We're not part of the party. Bernie's not part of the party, so we're not.
Not a real Democrat.
Real Democrat. So, just to segue, last week you saw those same complaints coming from Democrat strategists and lobbyists who are DNC delegates, blaming Bernie Sanders for retorting to former Vice President Joe Biden endorsing Tom Perez for DNC chair over Keith Ellison. And now, in my opinion, they are both not going to change anything. You've seen Ellison, who, although he endorsed Bernie Sanders, cozying up to the establishment to be able to get this position, and really making some pandering decisions toward Clinton supporters that make any Sanders supporter cringe.
Yeah, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I did a live stream on it the other day. Got over 1,000 likes, just so you know how hot this topic is. And the bottom line is, I said point blank, Bernie Sanders is a pariah to the Democratic Party. These worthless, let's be fair. I use the term worthless where appropriate. These worthless vote blue sycophants hate progressives, folks. Folks, there is no love for us in the Democratic Party. They despise us. They want us to shut up. They demand our vote. But they want us to shut the fuck up and fall in line behind whatever garbage they throw at us. So just remember that as you go forward and you listen to the Justice Democrats, and as you listen to this group and you listen to that group, remember that Democrats despise us. Despise us. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry, buddy.
They'll expect us to fall in line, then they'll blame us when they keep on losing, wondering why and where it went all wrong. So, either we're fringe people who they shouldn't, be worried about, or we're a big enough group, which we are, that they should, be willing to work with us and actually make concessions. This DNC chair race, it's symptomatic of that. Although I think Keith Ellison is just would be a symbolic gesture and not really change anything. The Associated Press did a tallying of DNC delegates, and Perez is ahead so far by over 60 delegates. So it really looks like the establishment is saying they want Tom Perez, who they lie and say he has a progressive record. But this is someone who was Secretary of Labor who supported the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. And that is something that labor unions, not only the majority of the biggest ones, opposed. They didn't just say, oh, we oppose that. They poured all their resources into shutting that thing down. And you have Tom Perez, who was not just saying, oh, I support it. Just like he wasn't just saying, oh, I support Hillary Clinton. He was actively campaigning for it and pushing for it. That's who you're putting in charge of the DNC. What it would be the difference.
Well, guys, we're waiting for Mike to come back. Mike will be back momentarily. So bottom line is that once again, the Democratic Party is taking us for granted. It's just a given. It is a constant given for the Democratic Party to take us for granted. So as Mike was saying very eloquently, Ellison is merely a gesture in our direction, but it's a symbolic gesture. They are in deep, way deep, ready to push this jackwad Perez. Folks, you have got to start waking up. If you believe the Justice Dems, in order for the Justice Dems to be of any value here at all to the Democratic Party, they're going to have to end up going along to get along. You realize this, right? They will in no way, shape, or form be able to do anything when you look at it, because the fact is that we've got a huge movement outside the party. Now, we can still vote inside the party, but why in the world would you give them money or your time if they're not willing to support us outright? Seriously, I will support progressives wherever they are, folks, period. But when you go into the party, number one, and number two, when you become the media and you say, now I am a media person and I am officially the spokesperson for the Democratic Party, well, you've just given up any sense of credibility you have whatsoever, haven't you? You really have. Because number one, you can't be unbiased. Number two, you're a partisan. You're no longer pulling for all progressives. You're only pulling for Democrat progressives because you're a part of the Democratic Party. You see this? Our movement has been neutered by Justice Democrats. They have literally given us a kick to the gonads and tried to tell us it's in our own best interest to accept the kick to the nads. That's the deal, folks. They have literally splintered the movement. Bravo, well played, you and your perfect little JD graphic. Anyway, Mike's joined us. Hold on. Come on back, buddy.
That's what you see with a lot of organizations. They're using this hatred towards Trump, and Trump is a huge marketing strategy for organizations to fundraise, like whether they're supposedly progressive or centrist. People are paying attention. People hate Trump. People love to hate Trump. It's easy to manufacture outrage, and it's a huge marketing tool. So you have organizations like Justice Democrats. They're able to exploit that opportunity to fundraise, and a lot of these organizations are appropriating the resistance and able to benefit themselves. You see Neera Tanden, who loves Hillary Clinton. She's one of the more prominent Clinton robots out there, who runs Think Progress, and the Clinton campaign chair John Podesta, Center for American Progress. She has the resist icon. They're all appropriating that resistance, that resist, and marketing themselves as this principled stance against Trump. But what they're really doing is they're trying to. They care more about preserving the establishment. Some of them are ingratiating themselves with Bernie Sanders to the point that they're just doing it to get to get fundraising, to get money. You see Chuck Schumer, the worst of them all, doing this. Just a few days ago, Chuck Schumer, who is the biggest Wall Street puppet in the Senate, he has received over twice as many donations from Wall Street. Senator in the Senate, he was attacking Trump for cozying up to Wall Street. And that's the pot calling the kettle black, so to speak. Schumer's trying out that populist, anti-Wall Street rhetoric without acknowledging that Wall Street owns, the Democratic Party as well.
I consider it like this. Go way back in the early 1900s and so forth, and you had Al Jolson stuff doing blackface, and you have mammy. That's what they're doing to progressives. They are literally doing political blackface to us. They're trying to pretend, they're appropriating progressive culture by being fucking losers. And they're sitting there. It's kind of like robotic. We are supporting the environment. And, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we're talking about so pathetically plasticine, such a fraudulent display that for us to even consider them, we have to look at what's in the pudding. We have to check the recipe. We have to see the bullshit they're shoving into the food. And right now, my friend, they have gone ahead and they have approved who? Carson? Ben, let me pull the ladder up behind me, Carson. They've gone ahead and they have promoted Debbie What's-Her-Name Schultz. They have gone ahead and now approved, let's be fair, they just went ahead and approved Jeff Sessions. What the fuck? Talk to me, brother. Talk to me, man. Make me feel better. Give me something to hang my hat on.
There's very little I can do to make you feel better. It's a grim prospect. It's depressing because these people, that's what they're doing. They are appropriating progressive values only to the point where they're using them as campaign strategies, hoping to get some extra seats and actually be relevant by 2018. It's not looking so good. They're not changing anything. They didn't change anything by appointing Schumer as Senate Minority Leader. Pelosi, she had a town hall on CNN, which was just like a neoliberal train wreck. All last week was just Nancy Pelosi gaffes. I think I saw something that she got caught on a hot mic, at a Muslim travel ban rally, saying to the person she was passing the mic to, tell them you're Muslim, and just exploiting that. Like, that's what we need to sell ourselves with. That's all they care about. They don't care about the issues, and they're still silent on a lot of the important issues. How many Democrats do you see, talking about Standing Rock right now with that resurfacing? None. There aren't any, except Martin O'Malley, who's trying to be relevant again, who wants to try. Obviously, wants to find something in politics that he can get elected to, and I don't see that happening.
Dude, I want to hit this hard. I'm going to cut you off because I'm just flat out pissed about this. So this debate last night about healthcare with Bernie Sanders and Rafael Cruz. I mean, this right here was, let's be fair. First of all, it was a pitch battle. Second of all, you got to see the bullshit. There is nothing worse than being someone who is literally for socialist programs like myself, to hear them call people that aren't socialists, that would sell socialists out, democratic socialists out, who would sell out the good of the nation, being able to carry the title socialist because the GOP is trying to set the bar up here for what it means to be a socialist so that there is no real socialist. So anything that in any way, shape, or form is done by the government is cast as socialist. And the reality is, and I'm going to tell you right now, Robert Reich, screw you, buddy. You know better. You know economics, and your sorry ass is out there running around telling people we got to find ways to come up with tax revenue to pay for things. Robert Reich, screw you. Bernie Sanders, you were counseled by Stephanie Kelton. You know the deal. You have been schooled by many, many people, including James Galbraith, amongst others, Bill Black, all the UMKC people. Bernie Sanders, you're still out there running around telling people taxes fund spending. Bernie, I'm not going to say screw you. I'm going to tell you, you've got an army of people that are truly woke as fuck. And the Green Party is refusing to accept this as well. And they're suckling into this whole positive money thing. Dude, stop snatching defeat from the jaws of victory here, folks. We got a real opportunity to make some hay, even with the orange guy in office. But here we are, Mike. Here we are. They're sitting there doing this debate. I know you've got a slightly different take on that. I want to hear your take, but I wanted to get that out there because I think people need to understand I am not backing down, folks. I will talk truth to power wherever it exists because it matters. It's time that we stop putting up these lies about taxes funding spending. So with that, I've got Mike coming back here. Mike, talk to me a little bit. Tell me what's going on with the debate. Tell me what happened.
It was depressing because, any arguments Bernie Sanders could make, he was really, holding the crutches because he couldn't switch the criticisms toward Democrats. He couldn't be honest about what was wrong with Obamacare. He did say, there needs to be improvements, but he wasn't really specific in what those improvements need to be made because basically Obamacare was sold out to the health insurance companies. There's a 2009 article that was in the New York Times. Chuck Schumer introduced the proposal that made it so that health insurance companies and Obamacare were even, and he basically sold out Obamacare to those health insurance companies. And the reason being was those health insurance companies were afraid that Obamacare could lead to single-payer health care. We wouldn't want that. So that's what you're getting at. Like Bernie said, most Americans would support single-payer health care, and either every middle-class, working-class person, it's either they have their own horror stories or they know someone who has those horror stories. And I obviously agree with you to an extent that the fear mongering of it costs too much is ridiculous. Ted Cruz pulled some numbers out of his ass that it would cost trillions a year to fund a single payer healthcare system. When that's ridiculous.
No, you're absolutely right. Here's the thing, Mike. Folks, let's just be fair. Tell me a time in the last 40 years, maybe 50 even, when you've seen bombs falling all around the world made by the US of A, and where they've said, oh my God, folks, in order for us to drop the next bomb, we need to know how we're going to pay for it. Can somebody tell me how we're going to pay for the next bomb? You have never heard it. Not once, not twice, not thrice. You've never heard it. Why is that? Because taxes don't fund spending, folks. Okay? They just know that you guys, we as Americans, are stupid enough that we will go with anything they say. So you watch the reflexive nature of the vote blue sycophant who falls in line for Obama and then sits there marching in place demanding we fight for the ACA, which was in essence a giveaway to the insurance companies, right? It was nothing but corporatism. Thank God for the gimme on the pre-existing conditions. Thank God for the gimme on the bridge gap between jobs and stuff like that. But beyond that, unless you've got $5,000 to pay for your out-of-pocket portion, you may as well not even have health care. It's like catastrophic insurance at best. So we need real health care, not health insurance, health freaking care. And Bernie has that shit ironed out, Medicare for all. We don't even need to improve the systems. All we have to do is go in there under the age requirement. Instead of being 18 to 64 or 64 to whatever, flip that thing down to age 0. And you've got your IT systems in place immediately. Boom, done. Healthcare solved. Why won't we do that? Because there's progressives in the world that want to say taxes fund spending. And there's Republicans out there who say socialism, and there's friggin' Democrats that are too dumb to know the difference. That's my spiel. Go for it, Mike. I'm sorry.
Even Democrats, not even talking about Bernie, they'll give in to that whole fear mongering about what the costs are. You're seeing this in Trump. If Adam Johnson has made they made these criticisms against Bernie during the primaries that his Secret Service costs like $600,000 a day, and that's costing taxpayers a day. They used that argument against Bernie during the primaries because they wanted him to drop out. So they were like, he's costing taxpayers all this money by staying in the race. Yeah,
yep.
Those are supposed to be Democrats. They're supposed to be, once upon a time they used to champion, these these reforms, and progressives were actually winning. But what you saw is the establishment. They really threw those progressives under the bus. They established superdelegates. Even before that, when George McGovern won the Democratic primaries, the Democrats then, they threw him under the bus. They refused to support him. They would rather have had another 4 years of Nixon than support McGovern, and that's what happened. McGovern got blown out because they threw him under the bus. Other than there were some issues with McGovern's campaign, but I bring this up because one of my political idols is I'm sure you know who Hunter S. Thompson is. But he wrote good political reporting back in Nixon and in the 70s and 80s. And you don't kind of see that honest reporting anymore, that in-depth reporting, certainly not in the mainstream media. So the people get away with making those, ridiculous criticisms, those fallacious arguments, and there aren't people. People are so polarized that they'll just believe it. They'll fall in line, and it's unfortunate because there's so many things that that you have to correct, and it's hard to keep up with.
So speaking of which, I want to break this down for you and for our audience, right? So what you've got here is a situation where the GOP is going to do all it can to repeal the ACA. Okay, so for all the horrors that come with the ACA, the good things that come with it will be gone too. Okay, so what we've got is a situation where we have, some would call it a catastrophe waiting to happen. Others would say it's opportunity. Well, see, the only time opportunity matters is when you're actually ready to seize the opportunity. On my wall today, we saw reflexive vote blue sycophants fighting around the clock to tell me how full of shit I am that taxes fund spending. Now, why is this a problem, you might ask? Here we are. We're about to try and pass this thing. And guess what? Not even pass it. Bernie won't even bring up single payer because it's too divisive. Divisive to who? Divisive to the Democrats. Ralph Nader wrote a letter to him saying, dude, Bernie, you got to put away this fear of being united with just the Democrats and speak truth to power, be bold, and speak about Medicare for all. And so when you don't have people living in truth and you've got a lot of mixed up swirling around going on, it is impossible to make progress. Let me put a real dot on it and cross the T here too. Every time you hear these vote blue sycophants running around saying they want to see Trump's tax returns, every time you see them whining about Trump's security detail at Trump Plaza, and every time they say taxpayer dollars, okay, they're doing it because they know it brings together the low-hanging fruit. It's an easy thing to pull everybody together under, and then they bang it mercilessly. Well, guess what the problem with doing that is? The same thing you're fighting against, it works the other way too. Now, all of a sudden, because you have worthlessly said this crap about his detail and taxpayer funded this, that, and the other, now you got to live and die by it on the healthcare side too. These jackholes, maybe the dumbest stoop fucks on the planet, yet here we are, and we're stuck in a situation where we really need single-payer healthcare today. We need it now, but these jackhole vote blue sycophants have put us in a no-win situation. They can't go back on it now. They've already stuck their foot in their mouth, so they got to ride that pony to the end. So guess what? Until somebody steps up and talks boldly, you can count on the Democrats screwing us right alongside of the Trumpers. Full stop. Anyway, that's my point I made. It's on you, brother.
No, I agree 100%. Really. And I wish Bernie would do a little bit of a better job when he cites other countries with single payer healthcare who, like he said, he did make a good point that, conservatives have been in charge of these governments. They haven't touched these programs because they work, and it would work here. And it's what we need here. And Even like growing up, my father's from Italy, so my grandparents were from Italy. The government there, they didn't stick my grandmother in a nursing home. The government paid someone to take care of my grandmother when she was, getting sick before she passed away. They don't have those services here. It's all about profit. Even the Medicare system now. And it's so expensive because these companies are, exploiting the prescription drugs. You go into the emergency room, no matter what you need, they're going to stick you with an IV because it's, extra money for that. So it's all about turning that profit. And that poses a lot of the problems.
Absolutely. So let's take a trip down neoliberal lane for a minute for the folks that hear the term neoliberal and don't really know what it means. Neoliberalism is about pushing private debt interests ahead of the public purpose. So what ends up happening is that neoliberalism has eliminated the space of Congress to do anything useful. They haven't actually done it, but that's their ideology. They push it all to the Fed. So all the Federal Reserve nuts out there, the freaks and the, whatever, sit there and go, the Fed. The reality is what the Fed does is manage the Fed fund interest rate, which allows you and I to go deeper in debt. Well, this is a situation. The full-blown Medicare for all is not a Federal Reserve fucking issue. It is absolutely 100% a congressional issue. It is a fiscal issue. And so every time I see someone go, Rothschilds, or I see them say something else stupid, my first instinct is to say, why do you hate my kids? Why do you despise progress? Why do you want us to so badly do without? And they have no answer because they don't care about facts. They're just as bad as the vote blue sycophants. Instead of sitting there peddling bullshit over that way, these people create fake narratives to fill voids instead of learning. And it's just as bad, it's just as cancerous, and it's just as toxic to progress. And so here we are, Mike, quite frankly, we're sitting here in a situation as the wealth gap goes like this. And people don't have enough money to pay their debts because they have financialized our economy. We're paying interest. The wealthy are making the money off our interest, and they're investing it. So they're not only making money off doing nothing but taking our interest, but they're making money on the interest on the interest. And this right here is the essence of neoliberalism. And these people out there would rather fight about the fact that we've got to find tax revenue, Chauncey, to somehow or another pay for it, instead of learn. And this is the stuff that makes me go apoplectic, makes me want to drop the elbow of truth from the top rope. It's unacceptable. I'm sick of it, can't handle it, done with it. And so I'm getting to the point now where if I don't hear politicians speak truth to power, I am going to send a full-blown army to their pages, to wherever they are, and just bombard them with truth about taxes not funding spending, because I am flat out done suffering for the idiocy. Anyway, there you go. Sorry. Full rant, brother.
I like the rant.
All right, so let's talk next here, bro. Sister Giant, man. No, let's go back another step further. Let's talk about Bernie wounds the DNC a little bit more. Talk a little bit about this bullshit that came up in the Hill and the article that you wrote as a counter to it.
What you had is the Hill, and they interviewed some lobbyists, some former Clinton supporters, basically blaming Bernie Sanders for the divide in the Democratic Party, and they're citing the race between Tom Perez and Keith Ellison as symptomatic of this rift. So basically they continue blaming Bernie and progressives for Hillary losing in a way, and that there's this rift in the Democratic Party, when really the rift is between people who don't want the Democratic Party to depend on billionaires. They don't want them courting lobbyists. They don't want this aristocracy to be idolized by the the DNC and the Democratic Party, which it is. They have, these pop culture celebrities, doing everything on their behalf, rubbing elbows together. You saw a couple of days ago, Obama releasing pictures of his vacation with billionaire Virgin owner Richard Branson. These are public officials. How do these people serve the public interest when they're, BFFs with billionaires and corporate lobbyists, and people fall into, they praise it, because there are mainstream media outlets that will cover them and support them, elevate these voices like they're these principled people, like they turn them into celebrities. They curry favor to those powers instead of challenging it. You've seen that in articles where every time Hillary Clinton tweets something now, it's a mainstream article making it seem like, oh, Hillary is standing up with Elizabeth Warren, or she's standing against the Muslim travel ban. She's not doing anything. She's getting one, Huma Abdul or someone else to send a tweet out. And you've seen Chelsea Clinton get more political. Right after the election, there were rumors, oh, is she going to run for Congress? And the sad, depressing thing is, because how ingratiated the DNC and Democratic Party still is with the Clintons, and how those people in the center won't even recognize the fact that she was a terrible candidate. That could easily happen, and that would be terrible decision for the Democratic Party. It would allow them to keep continuing to lose. You'd have the Clintons and their scandals still going on in the mainstream media. These people need to go away. Hillary needs to stay in the woods, not tweet. That would be best. But that's not what you're seeing. That's not what you're seeing. These people still, it's one big club and you're not in it, as George Carlin used to say. So in terms of, blaming everything on Bernie, he's been the scapegoat for a while, since throughout the Democratic primaries. And that's not going to go anywhere anytime soon, because we're not going anywhere. And we're going to be a thorn in their side, whether they like it or not, and no matter how much they get people to support people who like Elizabeth Warren, who is a good filter to, she favors the establishment. She's been politically spineless and a coward, but she still has a lot of support with progressives who aren't there yet, or aren't as cynical maybe as us. So,
well, I think cynicism is a word that gets a black eye, and I don't like cynicism per se in the sense of just an arbitrary cynicism. I go by the pudding, right? I look at what the ingredients are. She stood us up at the altar, period. There was a chance. She knew that wasn't her script. She went ahead and went into a tweet war with Donald Trump. When it came time for the Dakota Access Pipeline, what did she do? She basically sat on the sideline. When it came to KXL, sat on the sideline. Girlfriend is just a large, empty suit full of, let me tweet my wares. And I'm telling you right now, that dog don't hunt. And I swear to God, when we look at that and I see people saying, you guys are purists, you're just purists, you're purists. And I hear that crap, I'm like, Jesus Christ, you are just a box of freaking rocks. It's like you're carving a turkey with a spoon. What the hell's wrong with you? And these people, there's so many of them. It's like a drone army. And if you look at, I don't know if you ever saw the movie World War Z with Brad Pitt, or ironically, but there's this one scene and you can never miss it. Once you've seen it once, you'll never forget it. And it reminds me of these Vote Blue sycophants. It's the Jerusalem Wall. And what you've got is these zombies flying headfirst into the wall. They don't even care, like boom, 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 hitting the wall, bam, bam, bam. And they're climbing all over each other. And they get off and they just fall flat on the ground. They fall apart. They break. It doesn't matter. They just keep doing it. That's what they're like. They don't listen. There's no detail. And there's no interest in learning something new. They just continue the zombie march. The zombie march. And what happens? We all suffer for it. We all need this is the worst part. We are not a big enough voting bloc to go without those marginal progressives. And the marginal progressives and the vote blue sycophants, they're not a big enough voting bloc on their own to go ahead and defeat the GOP. So we're stuck in this situation. Are we going to be more for a planet, for peace, and for economic equality? Or are we going to prop up the neoliberal bullshit centrist nonsense? It's actually not even centrist. It's really old school right-wing Republican. It's just that Donald Trump has skewed the Overton window with his batshit crazy fascism. So what you've got is a situation where you've got a right-wing party in the Democratic Party and people that are so reflexive, they don't even think. They just sit there and do the zombie march. And that's what we're facing. It is daunting. The idea of having such just robots, just mentally deficient robots that absolutely contempt prior to investigation, unwilling to examine any kind of data. They are the left-wing version of climate deniers, in my opinion. That's how bad they've become. Sorry, I'm just laying it out there. It's just exactly how I feel. I hope I didn't stutter. I don't want to say anything wrong. I feel like I represented how I feel pretty clearly right there.
We saw this in the Democratic primaries. People see those same people see, Hillary Clinton or Cory Booker the same way that they see, someone like Brad Pitt. They don't entertain criticism, or if they do hear criticism, they either don't believe it, and if they, do believe it's factual, they'll say, "Oh, you're a purist" or something like that. It's hard to get through to those people, and they are zombies. All the super delegates supported Hillary, so they're like, "Oh, we'll do it too." We were given the warning sign. She's a terrible candidate. She's going to lose to Trump. This is a bad idea. And they didn't listen. And they're doubling down on the same failures. And that's what scares me the most, is that, in 2018, 2020, they're going to keep running these establishment politicians. They're going to pretend that they're progressive. They're going to put on that mask, and people are going to buy it. And either Trump's gonna win again, or they're going to pick someone who can pull off a victory, because Trump's going to screw things up so badly, and we're going to wind up with another neoliberal president who, gets touted and supported like Obama did, while basically failing to fulfill any of his campaign promises, and not draining the swamp, but replacing it with their own preferred billionaires and lobbyists and everything like that. Things are just going to get worse, and I haven't seen any sign that things are going to get better, other than some people, Trump has given them moral clarity to see how badly some of our policies have been, not even before Trump, and hopefully people start to wake up. So that's my hope.
Well, you bring a great point up, and I'm looking at, just so you know, I'm looking at our comments, and I love that we've got such an engaged community of people, Mike. But here's the thing, my heart grieves, because and my passion and my rage come from the fact that I'm not looking for answers. I'm not seeking out people's input on economics. I'm giving the input because I've done so damn much work. I'm tight with these people. I know what the policy space is. I understand the mechanics of it. And every single thing that you and I fought for with Bernie Sanders, we didn't fight for Bernie Sanders just because we don't like the Democrats, or just because of this, or just because of that. We fought for Bernie Sanders because he said the system is rigged. He showed the fact that Wall Street was getting richer and the poor were getting poorer. He talked about bombing the world over. He talked about the need for paid family medical leave. He talked about college for all. He talked about so many things. He talked about infrastructure spending. Said we would get millions of new jobs, fixing all these bridges. God, just the amount of work we'd have if we just got our country back to a C or a B rated status, in terms of our infrastructure would be 20, 30 years worth of work. And then we'd be back into maintenance mode just to keep it up again. We have so much work that's not being done today because of the myths and lies of neoliberalism. So when people prop up these neoliberal Democrats, these corporate Cory Booker losers, okay, what we're saying is we are dooming our children. Folks, I swear to God, you are selling your kids out if you don't fight for this stuff. That's how serious this is. Once you understand how all this stuff came to be, there can be no give on this. This is not purity. This is about life and death. I'm not even joking. Anyway, Mike, so let's just take a step back here for a second. Bernie spoke at something called Sister Giant, and it was like one of these underground things. They tried to bilk live streamers $50 just to friggin' have the right to stream it. Talk to me about Sister Giant, sir.
Well, it's a big fundraising thing, but the Bernie's speech got swept under the rug, and when he does say things that we miss hearing, that he spoke about all the time during the Democratic primary, there really aren't political journalists that are going to say, Bernie Sanders criticizes the Democratic Party for Trump's winning, and that's what he did, and we haven't heard that in a while. What in my opinion is that he's getting pissed off because either he was promised that Keith Ellison was going to win the DNC chair, or he assumed that would happen, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So I'm hoping that we see a Bernie Sanders who continues to get more pissed off. He's not really in a position to do that because he is an outreach chair, but he still gets that criticism that, he's not a real Democrat, he's still an independent. But that he has had the integrity to go back to being an independent because that's who he was representing when he was elected. And that same establishment, those same Clinton supporters, they don't acknowledge that, they don't understand that. And those to get back to what we were talking about, that same establishment, they're doubling down on this misconception that if they just make this one big center between center conservatives and centers on the left, which is really just elitism, that they can pull off a win, and they can win again, and that's not going to happen. I saw a tweet before, or a comment that it's not about left or right. It's about the poor, the working class against the rich, because our system has been so degraded by those powerful interests. And that's what we need to focus on, I think. The mainstream media, the establishment is going to focus on that, playing that, polarizing both political parties for their own gain. But they're going to, like Jill Stein always said, they're going to, fake left and move to the right.
You know what? Absolutely. So let's take a second for real. This to me is the most important thing. So I put a tweet out there from the November timeframe from Bernie's former economic advisor, Stephanie Kelton. And she talked about, and for folks that don't understand everything, that's okay. Ride along with me for a while. I promise you I won't drop the ball. I will keep the ball moving to the goal line. But she talked about how the best way to get revenge on the wealthy is to make them irrelevant. The way to make the wealthy irrelevant are to go ahead, elect, now mind you, our election system is FUBAR, but to elect and to pass legislation for the 99%. Stop acting like the United States is broke and needs the billionaires' money. We don't need their fucking money. We create the money. The government is the manufacturer of fucking dollars. And yet we sit there, but we're in debt to China. We're in debt to China. We have so much money in China. And this shit is really killing us. So as we go forward and we start talking about how we're going to overturn this and how we're going to fight, people are asking, what do we do? The party for the 99%, forget the 99%, the working man, whatever. How about we just fight for truth? Okay? The fact of the matter is, what do we value? We value healthcare as a right. We value education as a right. We value the environment. We value these things. We value peace, okay? We value truth, and we value humanity, peace, and planet over profits. So if that's what we value, then why in the world will we allow the very capitalists, the very wealthy, to control our narrative by being the gatekeepers for us to have good things in our lives? Think about how moronic it is that we put all our hopes and dreams into beating up the billionaire class instead of taking our sovereign currency, our sovereign rights, and fucking ramming it down their throat and making it happen. That's the deal, man. That is the straight dope, straight from Stephanie Kelton. She said it much more professionally. I said it much more like I'm ready to go to war. And I am ready to go to war because it's that serious. If you believe in climate change and you believe we can do something about it, time is of the essence. We don't have time to go poison the Rothschilds by getting their butler to slip some Epsom salts or something else into their drink and making out diarrhea or whatever the fuck y'all want to do. We don't have time for your games. We have got to do it now. And if you don't want to do it, then stop pretending like you're revolutionary. Seriously, just stop. Go back to watching video games. Go play some Dungeons and Dragons, but leave politics alone, because if you're not a real revolutionary, and you're not really trying to learn how to overcome this, nothing's going to change. So why bother? It's a waste of time. It's a waste of freaking time. Anyway, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit now about Debbie, what's-her-name Schultz, and her staffers, and this criminal investigation that apparently she's under right now.
Well, they have really kept a lid on this, but there's been reports that an employee who's still employed under Debbie Wasserman Schultz and 4 others who have been working for Democratic congressmen, they are under a criminal investigation. Some outlets have said that they stole equipment. Some have said that they hacked into congressional servers. So there's really not a lot of information out there. But I think it's funny that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is just a magnet for all of this. And she's been getting the same propping up treatment. She's getting treated like a spokesperson for the Democratic Party. Articles don't even mention that she was the former DNC chair and she rigged the primaries. They don't even mention anything negative about her. She'll say, something about Trump, and it's like, oh, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, said this. And you read the comments, and it's all Bernie people like, we don't care, we don't want to hear from Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but they're going to keep ramming her down our throat. She's been appointed to a couple congressional committees. She may have resigned from DNC chair, but the Clintons always pay their debts. The establishment always pays their debts, so she's getting taken care of. They took care of her for a re-election. Biden, Obama, Nancy Pelosi, John Lewis made their way down to Florida to endorse and campaign on her behalf to make sure she won. And she did win re-election. Hopefully we have Tim Canova running against her again. Running against her every time she has a re-election until she's gone. But we need to focus on getting rid of people like that and booting them out. And whether we do it one by one, that's what we have to do. And it's just depressing. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not a name we want to ever hear again.
No.
And the Democratic Party won't even acknowledge she did anything wrong. They praise her. They love her. And it's depressing to see that. But I wrote all about her during the Democratic Party, and I have no reservations in continuing to do so. To keep beating that her political career with the shovel until it is done, dead in the ground. That's my hope. So.
That's more than a golf clap, brother. I'm with you, man. You kept us alive during the primaries. You're right, and kept us alive through the election, and it continues to keep me going, brother. So look, we're over time here real quickly, but I wanted to just say thank you so much for joining up here with Real Progressives. You've got some stuff coming up here. I mean, folks, I don't know if you really know who Mike is, but Mike writes for The Observer, for Counterpunch, for a slew of places, and is just an amazing voice for progressives. He has always been a counter-establishment writer. The guy has spoken truth to power from the minute that I started reading him. Every time an article of his came out, I knew that I was in for an awesome ride. I feel blessed to have him on this team, and I'm really grateful to be able to share the mic with you tonight. So with that, I'll give you the last word, buddy, and then we're out of here.
Well, I really appreciate, being brought on, and, I'm excited because I think we can do big things. To people who don't know my writing, I was one of the first people to break the WikiLeaks DNC email story, and I outright said in the title, this proves, or this really reaffirms that the primaries were rigged against Bernie Sanders, and that's one thing that is obvious to progressives because it's a fact. But people, Democrats don't acknowledge it. The mainstream media, they don't acknowledge it. They pretend that it never happened, or it was a little unfair to Bernie. I was the first to break the DNC class action lawsuits. Those articles, I've been one of the most prolific critics of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So keep looking out for my writing. I'm going to keep fighting for you, and I'd like to put out like a little bit of a teaser. I sent it to Tatsu, but I got a tip this week that there's going to be a report released tonight at midnight on Guccifer 2.0. So I don't know if his identity is going to be revealed, but there's going to be a report on what he released and what was factually reported. I'm not sure which hacker is releasing this report, but hopefully tomorrow we'll have some big news. There's been a lot of skepticism to obviously what the allegations of Russian hacks into the DNC and Clinton campaign emails. So and we have yet to get any substantive evidence to prove whether it was the Russian government. They haven't said who it was. Likely because they either don't know or, they're
it never
that whole, basically. You had the NSA former technical director say that it looks like it was a leak. You had a former CIA analyst, suggest that it was a leak. You had that former UK ambassador say that he met with the WikiLeaks source and it was a leak. So we don't know. But there's only been one side of the story, and that side of the story has been retracted and heavily redacted because a lot of those stories were proven to be false, or they're really just based on assumptions that are unverified to this point. So hopefully we'll get some answers, and hopefully it'll embarrass the Democratic Party even more for propagating this false narrative. This ridiculous narrative to restore their own image and avoid responsibility and accountability for what they did in the Democratic primaries in this election.
All right. So, all right, Michael, thank you, buddy. We will talk to you next week again, sir, and look forward to breaking news throughout the week. Have a good night, everybody. Steve with Real Progressives, Mike with Real Progressives. We're out of here. So, of course, the V Live is going to keep us live, even though we're not. So hopefully we can go ahead and close this puppy out. Good night, everybody. If you hear us, forgive me. I'm closing it now.